All right, guys. Man. Okay. AMC up basically 100% on Friday. Came down a little bit. We're currently at that 7-ish level. And now we have now we have a catalyst, a potential catalyst. We don't really know what's going to happen here with the price. Adam Aaron did release a letter basically telling AMC shareholders that he still plans on having an offering in the future, which not going to get into that as far as like what my thoughts are with an offering or not. I'm just going to talk about the catalyst, the way they're placed, and how they affect the price, and how this relates to the AMC cycle. Because now we have to look at the AMC cycle a little bit different because of what happened. So a few things are going to happen here, right? So on the points of interest that we track on AMC, the major points of interest that normally take a few days to play out, those we expect at least a 70% move before the price either comes down or continues to rally. In this case, we don't have like as much information yet, so I want to wait and see what happens here on the opening bell on Monday and see where the price goes, right? But we do have a catalyst on the line that could potentially affect things, but I want to talk about why that's relevant to the cycle. Okay, so what I did was I have two ways I'm going to talk about this sort of setup that we can experience in the next few days. So we have the cycle here. Now, for those that are familiar with the cycle, we have a 62-day cycle here that we repeat over and over and over again on AMC, and then we call the green and the blue portion a point of interest because that's normally where we experience that heavy release in volume, right? So what is going on right now? Why is it cut off? Why is this just, there's no more cycle here, right? Well, the first scenario and sort of like a shift in cycle theory here on AMC is that, well, we're no longer tracking this specific cycle. And the reason I believe that this could be the case, well, is because this was outside of the point of interest. So again, many of you are tracking the cycle here, know that we experience volatility in the beginning of this little arc setup that we have. So that's one, right? Also, number two, which is going to make a little bit more sense when I pull up the quad witching curve on AMC. This is where it all clicks, right? So at this point here, this is the start of the year, so you can think of it as a reset almost in the options. Not only did we have the ape conversion in August, but then coming to January here, we had a new year, right? So a lot of leaps in the option chain, right, are hedged for, and sometimes you see a sort of reset in the cycle, and that's why a lot of these other stocks and cryptos are rallying right now. And sometimes they do just track other cycles in the market that have already played out a specific pattern, depending on what these hedge funds are using it for, right? So that is what we believe, at least here in the cycle approach that we take. All right. Okay, so apart from the cycle now, let's talk about the quad witching curve and why I think that we could be in a different cycle. Okay, so the quad witching curve, and this is crazy, guys, but okay, so I haven't moved the quad witching curve from what I had it last. This is what we have so far. So what this is, it's basically the cycle in option expiration date terms. So we take a look at this curve, and we draw a beginning and end point from the previous quad witching date to the next quad witching date. So in this case, we have September being the next quad witching date. And then it's fair to look at the price action the way we have it right now. And what I found interesting here is we are basically somewhere back here in the cycle. And where I think we are, I think we're following a sequence here, but I think that the pattern, the way the patterns are displayed, might be a bit backwards. Okay, so I think that this run-up that we had here, and this is because of the catalysts that are happening right now, But so we have a bullish catalyst at first with the court ruling, and then right after, immediately, we have the Adam Aaron letter, which again hasn't done anything to the price and doesn't mean it will do anything to the price. But I'm trying to compare the catalyst that we had in the past before using this quad witching setup here. So if we come back to December 21st, which is right after the quad witching on December 18th. That's the next one we start. And then we take that all the way through, right, to the next quad witching curve, right? And then this is what we have. We have a match, okay? But the crazy part is that this does not match with the cycle that runs every 2 months. And that is because, on this theory 1, that everything stopped here. And then basically you could track all the POIs here to a T. And then once you get to this area, we start to separate and we start to track a slightly different cycle. Doesn't mean that the days change as far as the tracking goes. I think the 60, the 62, the 120, the 90, all of those are still very relevant to the entire market. But specifically for AMC here, there might be a small shift in the cycle. Okay? So you can see the POI here is active on the quad witching curve. And then also some of these levels that we were tracking before, you can kind of see on a symmetrical level, we have a sort of accumulation pattern developing, okay, which means that they're accumulating shares down here and they're getting ready to rip this thing in the future. But that means things happen fairly slowly. As we've seen with the markets, things pump and then they come down. They trade sideways for a little bit and then they come back down, they go back up, okay? So remember, things don't go up forever, especially being at these current levels. AMC ran 100%, guys, on Friday in 10 minutes. Okay, it did that because in the after-hour session, they can't take away the buy button. It's not the same as the opening bell on Monday, right? And then the price goes up 10, 15%. They can do that. They can stall and they can pause the price action, but they can't do that in the after-hour session. Why AMC ran so quickly? Okay. All right, so number 2. This is 1. We have a match here, but the difference in where I think we are because of the catalysts that are currently playing out is that we have a lot of similarities as well to the November POI way back here. Now, things are not, they don't line up perfectly there in this specific cycle with the quad witching curve, but if you take a look at the regular cycle, okay, there is a lot of correlation right around that time as well. And this is not just with AMC, this is with the entire market. There's a lot of correlation in that smaller period, which means the price goes up, it comes back down quickly, and then you see some catalyst playing out here. What happened back here? Okay, so back there, we had an at-the-money offering, followed by, or not followed by, let's see if I can have these in order. Okay. We had Pfizer news followed by an at-the-money offering. This was the day after, guys. So we had the Pfizer news was basically saying that it was bullish for the movie theater industry, and we had AMC rally about 80%. And then basically I believe it was the 10th of November, we had an at-the-money offering. Okay, so this is basically equivalent, in my opinion, to Adam Aaron saying that in the future there's a potential possibility that there is an offering. So that's not news yet, but it is something that he released. So anything that the CEO releases is potentially a bullish or bearish thing, right? Okay, and then you have an offering complete, and then you have some FUD involved as well, the Cinemark. Okay, and then that brings the price back down, and then everything starts to rally after that. Now, this is a 62-day cycle. This was a POI in the beginning, and then 62 days later, we had the price rally. Okay, so we bring it back over here to the current events, and we have basically what could be something similar. So we have court news. Potentially, the letter is going to do something. We don't know yet. In my opinion, to me, it just seems like a very quick sort of it seems like FUD to me at first, like, hey, people are going to sell in the morning or something, and then they're going to start to rally the price, during the day or something, and then it comes back down again. So they're going to make you basically second guess yourself for a few days, and then potentially the price will come down for a little bit and start to rally back up in the next few months. Now, this is the worst case scenario, obviously. Best case scenario is that this doesn't affect AMC's price, and then things start to climb back up, and they keep going higher. Right now, the current levels that we're tracking on the macro chart are going to be around that $12 range in the short term before a pullback, if things hold, right? Something's bullish. Otherwise, I would be expecting some kind of downside following this catalyst, just because it's not a bullish one in the short term. It could be a bullish one in the long term, however, because we've seen that happen back here. There's some kind of offering, you get it complete. In this case, if you follow the same events using the January fractal here, pattern, not fractal, you have something similar, right? If the court approved this, right, and he had what happened back in March, which was the majority of shareholders approved, this offering for going through, and then basically the conversion, the split, and all that stuff. Then at that point here, we could see something play out the same way. And if you see it on the quad witching curve, the way these guys are hedging for those positions, we zoom out and we take a look at the parallel channel here, right? So what happens after this? And this is just a little map video, guys, of basically what I'm foreseeing based on the cycle. Now that we have a catalyst, we have more information, which is what we were looking for. And then now I'm trying to map it out and see how things can potentially play out based on these events. Because here, in the cycle analysis world, we believe, things are put in place, and then the catalysts are what's sort of playing this little show, this little puppet show. And yeah, I mean, the catalyst does not come first, right? The catalyst comes after the fact, that we know when things typically tend to go up here in volatility zones and stuff like that. So again, with this, if this holds, and this is the way the chart looks, I think there is going to be an opportunity here and potentially a projector pattern developing that will. So remember, looking at the macro setup here, guys, this is just a bigger version of that. And if this is a hedge zone where they bring the price, depending on the contracts, the open interest, all of that stuff has to do with this, right? But if this is a larger version of this, and we've pulled up this pattern multiple times before, then it makes sense that this comes up, hits that support, that volatility. You have volatility, parallel, and support. Hits the support channel, comes down, trades sideways for a little bit, and then gets ready to go up, right? So I'm not gonna get too ahead of myself in the way things are timed, because I don't believe that the catalysts are gonna play out 1-to-1, but I do believe that this is the start of a major change, trajectory change on AMC. The fact that it went up after hours 100%. I mean, that is not, you don't see that on any stock, especially AMC, one that has a very large, it has a medium-sized market cap, but it has a lot of people behind the stock. I mean, something like this, you didn't really see here ever since GME ran. It hasn't done the same thing. I mean, it's had rallies 50%. We had earnings, it went up 50%. The AMC went up 100%, and this is without APE in the equation, right? So that should just tell you, I mean, the fact that this is going up, it's very likely that if it does come down, it's not going to come down to drastic levels, and it's probably not going to come down to the lows that we've seen here before. I think this is a big move in the right direction, and as long as we start, staring our way back up, this thing should continue and eventually hit our targets that we talked about, right? So a couple of other things. I want to talk about here. Some of the fractals we've been tracking kind of go with this thesis as well. Okay, so we have XRP. It's one of the ones that we've been tracking for a little bit. And it goes with the same setup, right? So XRP, we have all of these, patterns and setups that are happening here. And you can see there's upside almost immediately. So this one kind of went against the cycle in a little bit, but the overall levels were still relevant. This is something we were still tracking. This is one of the patterns I'm going to keep tracking, just along the side of everything we've been analyzing here with the cycle. But you guys know that fractals and patterns basically go last. So we do the analysis, and then if the pattern agrees with the analysis, and that's just better for the possibility that things end up playing out that way. That's how I treat everything with patterns and fractals, right? So the ARPA pattern and all that other stuff, they're just potential candidates, and we treat it that way for that. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited for the coming days. I hope that the price here in the short term, I hope that things remain, not in the short term, in the long term, remain bullish. Again, I'm not going to try and guess what's going to happen here in the next few days because of the AA news. But again, if the price holds some of these support levels and we look at the stock, how we've been looking at it with the cycle, and things should be good to go. Now, this is going to be another sort of scenario thesis too, is that we are still tracking the cycle, right? And that this is just a major sort of error in the cycle. Like, we've seen some of these before, not to this extent, but basically what that would mean is that the price would go up very quickly and then come down very quickly. That's the only way I would see this being like some kind of, somebody covered very quickly based on this catalyst that came up. And now the price is going to come back down with what Adam Aaron said. That would be the only other way I would believe that the cycle would still be tracking the old cycle, right? This one right here. Because at that point, the algorithm is still in flow. And this is just considered a little, what we call it in the fast Fourier transform, is that they're picking up these little guys that happen randomly. They're usually smaller, right? But they're picking them up, and then they're smoothing out the wave for us so we can see a clear pattern and a clear cycle of what's happening. So that would be the only way, guys. I wouldn't see it any other way. So we're going to see here on Monday what happens. And yes, I will be streaming. So stay on the lookout for that. But yeah, if you guys have any comments or questions, make sure you drop it down below. And subscribe, guys. Hit that notification bell. And we'll keep you updated. Alrighty? Alright, bye-bye, guys.